Gracias, Iris. My name is Monica Miyasato. Hello, everyone. I'm a staff technical program manager and ERG lead at Intuit, and I'm super excited to be your moderator today. We have an amazing panel for you on elevating your career through mentorship and sponsorship. We have three amazing panelists joining us today, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Let's start with Estela.
Hello, everybody. My name is Estela Vaca. I am a sales engineer at Splunk, and I am super excited to be here today.
Thanks, Estela. Andrea, let's go with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Schupp. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a recruiter at Netflix and a ERG lead, employee resource group lead for our Latinx group called Somos.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. And Tanya, let's go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Macello. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I work at Swift, which is a fitness company. I am the Diversity, Inclusion, and Social Impact Manager. And just a fun fact about me, I just transitioned into the tech space about a year ago. So I'll talk a little bit about that.
Congratulations. That's awesome to hear. Thank you all. Before we get started, let's define what mentorship is and what sponsorship is. Would really love to hear your take on this. Andrea, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think there can be a lot of confusion with the two, and frankly, there is a lot of overlap, right? So when we think about a mentor is someone that advises you, gives guidance, their thoughts and maybe recommendations for your career. But a sponsor really takes that a level up above and talks about you, advocates for you, will ensure that they're connecting you with the right people, persons, and really does all they can in their power to help you progress.
Great. Estela, what about you? Could you please tell us what the difference is between a mentor and sponsor?
Sure. So when I started getting myself acquainted with these two important roles for my career, one of the things that I remember as a symbolism of what a mentor was compared to a sponsor, I thought of a mentor as a following star, is that one person that already walked in the footsteps that I wanted to walk, that has done all the needed hard work that I needed to do, and that I could learn from that person's mistakes along with my mistakes to get from my bottom line career to the places I want to go, In Spanish, we call it a brújula, that little tool that tells you where you're going. Are you going the right place? Are you not going to the wrong place? So for me, that's what a mentor is, Now a sponsor, I'm thinking of a sponsor as an advocate, somebody that sometimes can help us bring out that voice and say, I could do this, Some of us deal a lot with the imposter syndrome. And a lot of the sponsors that I have come along with have helped me a great deal to defeat that little voice that tells you you're not good enough, or you cannot get there, or maybe you're not smart enough. And so the sponsor is going to advocate not only within your organization and leadership, but also with yourself. Sometimes the biggest advocate that you need to have is not just someone in the inside, but someone in the outside, telling you, hey, it is okay to be afraid, but you can get there, So the sponsor is not only going to give you that extra network to get there, but will also help you along the way, So that's the way I see it. One is a brújula, while the other one can definitely be your machete to get through anything you want to do.
Love it. Guiding star, brújula, compass, machete. Let's go. Thank you, Estela. Tanya, let's finish this question with you. The difference between a mentor and a sponsor.
Yeah, no, I really like the examples that Estella and Andrea gave. I think for me, in my experience, a mentor has really been like an example, especially within like the corporate setting, right? My parents were blue collar workers and they were leaders in their own way, but the mentors that have worked alongside me have really been an example of what it means to be successful within the corporate world and now the tech world. And then I would say that a sponsor is more someone that makes space and room for you, right? Who is able to give you like a seat at the table to make sure that like your work is elevated and that people like see the value that you bring to a company. They can work with you, or they can be an industry leader who's also connecting you to like other opportunities within the industry.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. Now that we've defined what mentorship and what sponsorship is, let's go to you, Stella, first. Tell us how has mentorship shown up in your career and helped you personally?
Well, in my career, personally, started since I was in college, I came to this country when I was only 15 years old and I spoke zero English. And one of the things that I thought I was never going to be able to do is have a voice. When you come to a country where you're not really speaking what everybody else is speaking, you're definitely already muted. And what's the easiest way to become someone is, for me, it was very important to find that mentor, somebody that had gone through the footsteps that I want to get to, that I wanted to go through to be successful. My parents, as Tanya was mentioning, they were not professionals, and my mom doesn't speak English still, so I couldn't rely on her. One of the things she told me to do was find you a mentor in a school. And I thought, oh my God, what's a mentor? I mean, we don't see that word mentor in the Latina culture because we see more like, oh, my grandma told me how to do something, or the neighbor told me how to do something, or you know what, my auntie taught me how to make cookies, and now I have my own cookie business. We don't see it as a mentorship, but in reality, it is. It's somebody teaching you something, right? So when my mom told me that, I went to my counselor and I asked, what's a mentor and where can I get me one? And my counselor said, you know what, I could be your mentor and I can teach you how, because she had to learn Spanish. I mean, she was teaching some of us that we were in ESL to get to college because we had a scholarship. And I really used all my time talking to her about how I was going to be able to pay for college, because that was one of the main things. We didn't have the money. So I needed to come up with the money. What kind of career did I want? Because at the time, I mean, we're talking about 25 years ago. Women in technology were not a big deal, And one of the first things she told me, do research as to how much money do you want to make a year? And I thought, oh, that must be important. I will definitely look into that. And technology was at the top, And one of the things that was important was looking at my GPA. I was really good at math. And I thought, okay, you know what? My mentor told me I could do this. And she got me to talk to somebody in the technology world at the time. And that's how everything started. I'm telling you, that brújula that got me to think, yes, that's the place I'm going, that way. That's how it played part of me. It started since I was in high school. I hope I could say it was younger. I know I talked to so many people that say, I wanted to go to this college since I was 7. I didn't get that. But when I went into high school and I found a mentor, I knew exactly where I was going. So that's how it played part. From there on, every time I go into a new company, I always look for a mentor. What's the new role I want to go into? And I partner up with that person and say, what skills should I be learning? What should I be doing to get where you're going, And definitely it's a partnership.
That's so amazing, Estela. That's a great story. And let me tell you, your English and your Spanish are perfect. So I wouldn't know that you learned at 15, but that's the great story. And your mom, even though she didn't go through those steps, she gave you the tools and the advice to actually get into mentorship. So I'm very glad that you got that from a very early age. Kudos there. So Tanya, I'm curious to know about your mentorship experience in your career and how it helped you personally.
Yeah, I feel like my mentors have been really impactful, both on like my personal life and also my professional life. I would say that, like I mentioned earlier, they really provided an example of like how to navigate the corporate world, allowed me to like build new connections within the industry. I typically went to mentors for advice, right? Like, I'm having this issue. How do I navigate it? Can you provide some support? In the very beginning of my career, I know that I really struggled with like confrontation and having like difficult conversations, right? I used to tend to like run away from those. And so I would always ask about, how to, for support around some of those challenges that came up. But mentors were also sort of like a catalyst, right? I mean, I feel like I could have achieved where I'm at right now without them, but it would have probably taken like X plus amount of years, right? Because they really set me up for success. And so, I think that having a mentor, especially when you're from, a marginalized community, is really important. I think that there's a lot of obstacles for our community, and so finding someone that is able to guide you and be that compass for you is extremely important.
Thank you, Tanya. That's so true. Catalyst. I love that. I'm going to add it to my list. And yes, confrontation. I've struggled with that as well. And I've read a lot of like studies about like, especially like women or like you said, marginalized communities and how that, plays a part on how we, see confrontation and how we react to it. So I'm glad you were able to find someone to guide you and be that catalyst in your career. Great. Andrea, lastly, let's go with you and an example of how mentorship helped you personally in your career.
Yeah, I think the individual that comes to mind is someone from my previous place of work who was on the same extended team. And this individual also identifies as a woman of color and absolutely took me under their wing. I felt like I was few years of experience, few years out of college. And when you're so young in your early 20s, it's terrifying. You're in the real world. I was paying bills on my own. I was living on my own. It was an exciting time, but it was also a scary time. And just as you mentioned, Tanya, there's a little bit of imposter syndrome, a little bit of me being fearful, frankly, to be a disturbance and upset anyone, very, very much wanting to be a people pleaser and not have my own thoughts or opinions if they greatly differed than my superiors or my greater team. And I feel fortunate enough that this individual advocated for me and was really able to help me find my voice. As a Latina, I do feel like I have a presence and I love that, but I was trying to find that balance of how can I show up in the workplace and be respected. And so very fortunate enough to still be in touch with that individual to this day. And I'm still getting words of advice on why haven't you said this? What do you think actually would happen if you did surface that thought, that idea, that different opinion, because it's okay to. And I've even used them as a soundboard to say, okay, hypothetically, if I phrase, my thought or my idea this way, how would you take that as, someone that is a director now? And so it's so important, I think, to find a mentor that you can truly trust, and that, at least for me, it was important to have that individual understand where I'm coming from, from a race, ethnicity, culture standpoint. I'm not bilingual. I don't fluently speak Spanish. And, there's kind of this middle ground even of those that don't fluently speak Spanish as well. But I still wanted to feel that sense of belonging. And so I feel like she is in a similar boat and really helped me navigate this dual world.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm loving all these stories. So I know, Estela, you mentioned, you found yours all the way back when you were, in high school, and you found, or college, and you found a counselor. Andrea, you mentioned someone took you. You're like, I'm 20-something-year-old, and someone took me under my wing. And so as our careers evolve and grow, so do our relationships, right? How have your interactions with your mentors changed from early career to now? Even if it was, it doesn't have to be like in Andrea's case, same mentor from the beginning to end. Even if you like switched mentors throughout, like how have those relationships changed and morphed throughout time? Let's start with Tanya.
Yeah, they have changed a lot. So I remember in my last job, I had a boss who I worked with for 6 years, right? And it was my first job out of college, and she was a white woman. Uh, and what I really appreciated was that in her position of privilege and of power, she was able to serve as my mentor. And in the very beginning of my career, I was always just wondering, is this the right career for me? Like, should I focus like on this or that, because there's many different avenues that you can take. And so I was trying to figure it all out. And what I really appreciated about her was that she would give me different projects focused on like different things, and then I would be able to discover like I like this or I don't like this and I want to focus more on that. And so that was really influential in helping me really decide what I wanted to do. I sort of started out doing sustainability, and now I'm in like diversity, inclusion, and social impact, because I knew that I wanted to have an impact on marginalized communities and bring more diversity into business. And now that relationship has evolved, right? So I'm further along in my career. We no longer work together, but we meet on a monthly basis just to check in with each other. And what I'm asking for advice now is a little different. Now I'm asking about like influence, right? How do I influence senior leadership? Because in my role, that's what I have to do. I have to build the business value for diversity. And so whenever I'm stuck or I'm trying to figure out what to do, we meet and we talk about like different alternatives, different perspectives. And so that's been really helpful. And influence is something that I feel like even when you're like in a top leadership role, you're still struggling with, right? How do you like ensure that you're bringing people along, and making sure that you're creating impact and creating change within a business? And I would say that there's definitely more trust now, right? What I would talk to her about 4 or 5 years ago is not, the same conversation that we're having now, because I feel like I'm able to express myself more deeply with her. And I also feel like the relationship is symbiotic now, right? Because sometimes she'll share with me like things that she's dealing with, things that she's struggling with. And, she'll ask me for my opinion, and we'll talk about different projects, right? Because we're still like in the same industry. And so I thought that was it was really interesting to see that relationship evolve over time.
That's awesome. I love, yeah, trust, right? That's the base of all relationships. So I'm glad you kind of progressed in that area. Andrea, let's go with you.
Yeah, I believe it is a trust piece, absolutely, as well as a confidence piece. Earlier I know that I mentioned that fear of not knowing, and while that first mentor took me under their wing, I feel like I've had the amazing privilege of having multiple mentors, even at my current company, outside of the company. And now I feel like I've gravitated towards them. Once I find individuals that have similar values and life goals, I find myself creating a relationship with these individuals and wanting to meet on whatever cadence works best for them, as long as they're open and willing to go ahead and share their thoughts and ideas with me. And I feel a sense of being empowered to come to them for advice. And now I feel like I'm able to not just think of those like surface level questions, but how can I dig deeper and get as much information and knowledge and experience from all these different individuals, especially as they are at different times and points in their careers. And I really hope to just be a sponge. And I think that is really what's contributed to me progressing throughout my career as well.
That's awesome. Sponge. Yeah, I like that. It's just like soak it all in. Thank you, Andrea. And lastly, let's go with Estela. How have your interactions with your mentors changed over time from early career to now?
They have changed a lot. So when I started the mentorship idea, because to me it was just an idea, I can use it today. I didn't know that it was something that I was gonna rely on the rest of my life and the rest of my career. And so it has definitely changed from the interaction perspective to the knowledge gaining perspective. So when I used to look for a mentor, it was very informal. It was more like, give me 10 minutes of your life. And sometimes I wouldn't even use those 10 minutes wisely. You're young and you really don't know what you're asking. Sometimes I will feel like I was just throwing darts at the dark, like I think I got one, but I'm not sure what I got, And so as the years have gone by, one of the things I've realized is when I look for a mentor, I look for someone that has the skills and the knowledge that I would like to acquire. And I like to set up a cadence with them, I like to set like maybe a weekly cadence, if it's not possible, maybe once a month. And prior to talking to these individuals, because in the type of field that we're in, some of these individuals are very busy individuals. If we're talking about software developers, if we're talking about architects, if we're talking about project managers, these are the type of people that I look for to mentor me, because eventually at some point I would like to either become a director or a leader for one of these teams, and I need to know exactly what is it that they're doing. I cannot afford to waste their time. Time is money, and that's something I cannot get back to anybody, So with that in mind, the interactions I used to have back in the days from throwing darts in the dark, it can no longer be useful, because now we're talking about people that have a schedule, that every single one of their minutes counts. And so for my mentorships, one of the things that has really, really helped me get the most out of it is come with a series of questions. What is it that I'm working on? What is it that I am interested to learn? Or if I hit a certain roadblock, kind of write it down and see exactly how this individual could help me. I started to get into the habit of blogging those interactions, and more for the reason of remembering, did an article come up during that conversation? Did the person say contact someone else? They might be the most appropriate. And not only is it helping me expand my network, but it's actually teaching me on how to rely on their knowledge to maybe later on revisit that conversation. And a promotion just recently happened for me. I recently got promoted from a technical support account manager to a sales engineer. This strategy actually helped me a lot to get that promotion in only 8 months. It was that relying on someone that knew how hard I was working and connected me with the right person that was looking for somebody with my sets of skills. You see, so it's not just about asking for that advice, but in that process, somebody might be looking for you or for me or for the person next to you. So it's a bringing in package. Mentorship for me back in the days used to be throwing darts in the dark. Now it's more of a, let's plan it out. Where's our map? And if we got lost, where did we get lost? Where's my brújula and where exactly did I get lost?
Grab that brújula back.
There you go.
Thank you, Stella. Wow, congratulations. That's amazing on your promotion and for sharing how mentorship helped you get to where you want it to be. And it's going to help you get, I'm sure, wherever else you want to get to next. So yes. No, we know it, Estela. So thank you so much for that. So much of effective leadership is about educating through stories, through our stories, our successes, our failures. And I know, Tanya, you mentioned that you were mentored by a white female, and who didn't share your ethnicity. I also heard from the panelists that it's important to kind of see yourself reflected in like those who are mentoring you as well. So there's a whole different types of mentors that we can have. With that, how important is it to share your own narratives when mentoring? Let's start with Andrea.
Yeah, I think it is crucial, really. I think it adds a human element to it, where when I first met with that senior leader in HR, they were a few levels above me, frankly, and I just thought, the world of them. I know that when I looked at how they navigated very difficult conversations with senior leadership, how they gracefully and tactfully handled some stressful situations as well. I mean, being in HR, there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows that you have to deal with, unfortunately. And I really appreciated just how clear and transparent this individual was by sharing exact stories of how they handled it, because it did help me in my career. When I, navigated similar situations, I thought, here's what worked for that individual. Let me proceed, or here's what didn't work for that individual. So I have a feeling that taking that same tactic or process probably won't work either. And I know that's something that I try to implement as well when I'm mentoring and guiding other individuals, is telling my life story. Here's my experience. Here's everything that I've learned, so I can hopefully share that knowledge and wisdom and guidance to anyone else that's needed. But I think providing the tangible examples are just so crucial.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. And now let's go to Estela. How important is it to share your own narratives when mentoring?
As Andrea was mentioning, I think it is crucial. Is the foundation of that beginning of the relationship. It lets your mentor know exactly where you're coming from, so that that specific person has a better vision of how he or she can help you get to the place that you want to get to. Sharing the background information to me is I compare it very much to looking at a big elephant. If you were to go into a room and somebody blindfolded you and they told you that you needed to clean up this object in front of you, and at the end of the cleanup, tell them exactly what the object was, but you can't see, right? But your job is to clean it up completely, make it look flawless, okay? Imagine that, and you have that blindfold. That's your mentor, okay? And you're that object. And you put that person in there. There's no backstory. You being blindfolded is no backstory whatsoever. How do you know that your mentor is not going to miss a single piece of that and make you look flawless? It's not possible, right? And so if we look at this analogy, what if that object is not even an object? What if that you're cleaning is actually an elephant? But you don't know. I mean, you're going to be cleaning a wall, and then you're going to be cleaning maybe a rope. And maybe at some point you're not even going to want to clean because it's probably going to look like a snake, you know? And so it's a very funny analogy, but I like that analogy a lot. It's the ability to have a full view as to what is it that you're doing, because having the background story on somebody will allow you to have a full view. Do I have an elephant, or is it just a wall? Or am I even cleaning it? What is it that I'm doing? So giving your mentor that background, you let them know, I'm a big elephant and I'm going places. This is how I need you to help me. I need you to tell me when I need to step on something. I need you to tell me when I need to be gentle. I need you to tell me if I'm even an elephant, because maybe you might be wrong. It's a really good idea to give your mentor a full idea of who you are, where you came from, and where you're going.
Love the advice, Estela. Yes, yes. Now I'm gonna go clean my room soon. All that cleaning.
Don't find a snake.
I know, no snakes, no snakes. Oh, hopefully there's no elephants in my room either.
No.
That would be really weird. But thank you, Estela. Yes, yes. And going back to the trust, right? To be able to open up to your mentor and share all those sometimes vulnerable parts of ourselves as well. Thank you, Estela, for that. And finally, let's go with Tanya.
Yeah, well, I don't have a fun analogy like Estela, unfortunately. But I think it's really important for us as Latinas to storytell. I think that one, it builds community, it builds connection, it makes individuals feel like they're not alone, right? That they're not the only ones dealing with these challenges, these barriers that Latinas and Latinos face, right, on a daily basis, trying to climb up corporate ladders and break into spaces like the tech space. I try to share my story as much as possible, and I know that sometimes, like, if your mentor is, a white woman, like, there's some understanding there, but our lived experiences are so unique, right? And I also feel like as a mentor, it's really important to just listen and have empathy and just really be there as a support system, right? Even though, you might not have the same lived experience as somebody else, supporting someone through failures and through successes. I think it's important. And I love this community, the Latinas in Tech community, because like, this is what we're doing, right? We're storytelling, and Latinas in Tech didn't exist 10 years ago. Like, it's like so amazing that like we're starting to build these like communities now, and really showing that folks aren't alone, that there's a lot to learn from people that have already experienced a lot of success and a lot of failures within the corporate world.
Perfect, Tanya. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Having someone sponsor you and being invested in your professional development is such a powerful tool to achieve our career goals, right? We've all learned from all of your stories that how important that is. And I'm glad to hear that you all had, someone there to fulfill this for you. And look at you. I mean, I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so proud of my Latinas here, and what we're doing, and building that community, Tanya. I think that's very important. Now I'd like to quickly just hear from you on how we are giving back, right? We've learned about all these mentors that we had, all this sponsorship that we have, but let's start with Andrea, and I'd like to ask you, how have you personally supported others in their career journey? And do you have any experience being someone's mentor or sponsor?
Yes, I am so grateful for all of the mentors and sponsors in my life. I really attribute where I am today to them for their confidence, their guidance, their wisdom, their emails to my bosses of describing the work I'm doing and how they think that what I'm doing is great. I always get a little awkward talking about myself and saying, I do a great job. But I saw the value and impact it had on my career. And so I've really been trying to return the favor where possible. I do have a few individuals that I work with that I advocate for. And as a Latina, as a leader of our Somos employee resource group, I really do try to have the rest of our community and its allies that choose to attend as well feel empowered. We are not a minority. Our numbers are some of the largest ethnic and race populations in the entire US. And, we have to use our voice and we have to advocate for one another. So whenever possible, I do try to highlight the work that's being showcased either on our extended Somos leadership team or my recruiting partners or cross-functional partners or peers or someone that I maybe had one encounter with. But if I see that they did a great job and I know that me raising my hand and going out of my way for probably just a handful of minutes to make sure that they know that they did a good job, but also if possible, their supervisor knows that they did a good job, that may be the tipping point for that person to get that promotion, to get that recognition, to, at some companies, maybe even get that bonus of, wow, they are performing above and beyond. And so taking that action and initiative, even on the mentorship level, the one word of advice, it can make someone's day, even, maybe let alone make someone's career. I do have someone in my sorority that I was connected with to be a mentor, and I do feel like I've been able to really guide that individual to provide not just resume advice, but here's how to go into a job interview. Here's the questions to be prepared for. Mainly because looking back, in interviews, they can ask difficult questions, those really tricky questions. And so I just wanted to make sure that that individual was prepared. And I'm going to hopefully, continue making a difference where possible.
Love it. Thanks, Andrea. Making a difference. And also you mentioned something about allies, right? It's not just our community, but like Tanya said, her first mentor was as a white female. And look at all the help that she provided and all the sponsorship she provided. So love that. Speaking of Tanya, let's go with you next on this question.
Yeah, I think it's really important for all of us who've had mentors to pay it forward, right? Like, I know how much of an impact my mentors and my sponsors have had on like me personally and professionally. And so I want to make sure that other folks have that same opportunity. And I'm always like available. Like, if you look me up on LinkedIn, you want to have an informational interview. And I think all of us get those messages a lot, right? Where it's like, hey, do you have a quick 30 minutes to chat? And I'm like, yes, like I can tell you about everything that I know, but this is my perspective, right? And I'm sure you're going to see many other different perspectives the more you talk to people in the space that you want to, tap into. I also volunteer with organizations who are working with youth, particularly like youth who are BIPOC or from marginalized communities, because I think that, again, it's super important for us to share our stories so that people feel like, there's representation and also that they're not alone. So I do that. And then I think in my role as a diversity, inclusion, and social impact manager at a startup company like Swift, I have like the ability to influence a lot of like of how the company decides to grow, right? And so what I've been doing is having lots of conversations with our VP of talent engagement to make sure that we are bringing in diverse talent. And that's just another way of us like making space for more Latinas in the tech world, right? We're even doing like a training for recruiters to remove bias from the recruitment process. And then the other thing that I really like and that I like volunteered for is we have an internship program. And that internship program brings a huge percentage of BIPOC interns to Swift. And so this will be my second year in a row that I am managing our interns for our department. And I think of myself as being able to serve for them as like in a mentorship capacity, right? Not only, you know, managing the work that they're doing, but helping them to sort of navigate through difficult situations, continuing to stay connected with them even after they leave Swift, seeing if there's opportunities for me to, you know, connect them with somebody else or another job opportunity. So if anyone's looking for a mentor or just like career advice, you know, definitely reach out. I'm always open to connect.
Thank you, Tanya. And you have such an important role as a diversity, equity, and inclusion leader on shaping, right? How companies grow. I love it. And finally, let's go with you, Estela.
Yeah, so Splunk has a great mentorship program right now. We call it the Camp. And so Camp is a program offered to all of our Splunkers where people are looking to either become a mentor or be a mentee. And so I participated in both. Last year, I had a mentor, by the way, he was amazing. And this year, I am a mentor. I am actually mentoring an individual that is trying to look to acquire new soft skills to further his career. He's great at what he does, but he's just really trying to know how to better communicate with others, you know, and I'm trying to assist him with that process. It has been a very humbling experience. It has been a great experience. I really like helping other people to acquire new skills. And when that involves something that I hold very dearly to me, it kind of becomes more personal, you know. I mean, communication was a great part of my learning curve. I needed to learn how to properly communicate with people so that people could understand me. But I also come from a background where in Latinas in tech, most of our programmers are males. You know, we all know that, or most of our project managers are males, or most of the people developing the plans to execute are males. And so having those really good sets of skills that I can now share with him as to you shouldn't communicate that way. Maybe it could come from this angle, you know, because now you have not only males in the team, but you have females. You know, your tactic has to shift a little bit. It has been great. I also do serve in as a ERG Somos as part of the committee. And I volunteer a lot all the time when it comes to talking to in conventions for high school students that would like to learn more about the technology world, or that they would like to know if coding is for them, or if even engineering is for them, or even kind of have an idea if it's a field they would like to explore. Just this past Saturday, I had the pleasure to be part of a career, it wasn't a career fair, career preparedness session with the SHPE, which is Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. They are actually a nonprofit organization that is helping Hispanic to advance in STEM programs. And so I participated in it to help some of our college students to prepare for those difficult interviews, and sharing kind of my background as to how a Latina female can make it from not speaking English to actually making it into the technology work, because it is possible. Sometimes you just need that one person that tells you it is possible, you know? So that's how I'm putting my little grain of salt, just kind of doing it. Every chance I get to participate in my kids' school career fairs, I do it. I do recall this one time I participated in one of them. And at the time I was a cloud application engineer. And I went to explain what a cloud application engineer was. And one of the little girls kept on pulling me, and she said, "Quick question for you." And I said, "Yes, dear." She said, "Please tell me you are a Latina." And I say, yes, ma'am. Please tell me you speak Spanish. And I say, yes, I do. And she started going off in Spanish. She goes, I don't know how to speak it. And I'm so nervous. And I just got here from Mexico. And my mom told me I could do things, but I believe in it. And, I walked out of the room thinking, wow, if I could honestly impact this little girl this way, maybe one day she will be walking in my shoes, or she might be my CEO. Who knows? That's how big somebody can impact your life. So it was a great experience. So again, if I could help someone, I'm also available. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You need 20 minutes to prepare for an interview, reach out. Sometimes that's all you need. You need to reach out to people to kind of help you with it. And if you need a brújula, I'm here to help as well.
Love it. Full circle with that brújula, Stella. Thank you. I love your how much you center on volunteering and thank you all for offering for everyone listening to us that if they need anything, they can definitely reach out to us. I think our LinkedIn links are going to be posted, so please reach out. Yes, definitely big on volunteering. At Intuit, actually, one of our values is we care, give back. So I'm glad to hear that it's prevalent in all of our lives, really. And lastly, I know I could talk to you for the whole day. This is so insightful, but unfortunately we're running out of time. So I just wanted to just finally get what it would be briefly, one last best piece of advice that you got from a mentor or a sponsor that you want to share with us today. And let's start with Tanya.
Sure. It's definitely to be curious and to lead with inquiry. I think that that's a really important tip that I received from a mentor before, and it's really relevant, especially in my department, right? I'm trying to influence minds, influence behaviors, and sometimes passion allows you to be a little bit hot-headed and divisive, but I think that what's been really helpful for me is to keep the curiosity at top of mind and really ask questions, right? If someone doesn't have the same perspective or idea as I do, right? And I think it's a great idea, ask and figure out why they think the way that they do, and those that information that you'll be able to pull from them with questions will allow you to figure out a new way of positioning yourself and your ideas, and will help you sort of navigate bureaucracy and basically attract more bees with honey is what they call it. Right.
Perfect, Tanya. Thank you. Yeah, I love that. Stay curious and don't be afraid to ask questions. That's great advice. And it took you this far, so that's good. Let's go with you, Estela.
I think for me was 2 advices. The number one that it still takes me everywhere is the leap of faith. That one actually came from when I was applying for college. I was so nervous. I had no idea where I was going to go. My mom told me, we don't have the money for college, but you have the GPA, so you're going to find the money. And I remember I went back to my computer science teacher. At the time, I was taking classes in Microsoft Word. Woo, it was the biggest thing, we were working with PowerPoint. And I remember sitting and I was crying because I had just gotten accepted to a private university. And I had no idea that they were offering me a full ride. I had no idea. And so I was crying because I thought, how am I going to pay for this? We have no money. That back in the days, 25 years ago, the tuition rate was $45,000 a year. How in the world was I going to come up with $45,000? And I was ready to rip off the paper and say, forget it. I'm not going. I'm probably going to go to community college, or I'm probably not going to go to school, whatever. And I remember he approached me and he said, what's wrong? And I said, I got this letter and I'm so angry because I got accepted. How am I going to pay for this? And then he said, oh my God, you forgot your biggest check. And I said, there's a check? Where? Because I don't see it. And he gave me his hand and he said, lady, it's called a leap of faith. If you want something so bad, the universe is going to conspire and give it to you. All I see here is a letter that says, welcome. What is the problem? And I told him, I don't have the money. And he said, you do have one. It's called a big check with a leap of faith. You return that package and I will see you next year when you're a freshman. I swear to God, I still don't let go of that one. My leap of faith has taken me big places. Not only did I go there, I was able to go study abroad for a whole semester in Spain. I wanted to see Italy and I got there. I graduated, I had a family, and before I graduated, I couldn't finish the school because I had my daughter and my son, and many people would have thought I was never going to graduate from college. Mom with two babies, how is she going to graduate from college? Well, I was holding out to my check with the leap of faith. I was. I had my leap of faith that one day I was going to go back to school again and I was going to finish, and I did. And with my leap of faith, I took myself back into technology and I ended up where I am today. With my leap of faith, I'm going places, so that was my number one. My number two is when all fails, go back to basics. Which one is the basic? Breathe. When we are under a lot of stress and in difficult times, we forget to breathe. And in the process of breathing, you forget that there's the smarter people around us. Thank God. I could not live with myself if I was the smartest person. That would be chaotic. But breathe, take a deep breath. You're having a hard day. Take that's precious 5 seconds to breathe in and breathe out. It can take you long. It could take you a long way in a lot of good places. A very bad situation can be diffused with that breath. You can probably realize that problem wasn't even a problem at all. Well, you know what? You can find out it's broken and there's no way to fix it. Let's start over. So leap of faith and take a deep breath.
Love it, Estela. Wow, what a story. Andrea, let's end with you. A piece of advice that you got from a mentor or a sponsor.
Yeah, before I do, I just want to say both Estela, Tanya, perfect words of wisdom. I know I'm going to take them with me as well. And a piece of advice that I received from someone during the pandemic, really, when a lot of companies were making a lot of shifts and changes, was know your worth. You have to look in the mirror and recognize all the hard work that you've done to get to where you are today, and channel that with confidence. Go after what it is you want and what you're looking for. Exactly what Estela said. It's being able to speak to that work and have that leap of faith.
That's amazing. That's amazing. This has been a great panel. And I want to thank Latinas in Tech and Estela, Andrea, and Tanya. I want to thank you all for your amazing stories and for taking the time to share it with everyone here at Latinas in Tech. And, I'm going to be closing the Elevating Your Career Through Mentorship and Sponsorship panel with a heart full of gratefulness and ready to take a leap of faith, breathe, and and get going. And I'm so glad to have had this time with all of you. Thank you so much.